Hi, good morning, everyone. It is Wednesday, and we are souls on fire, ready to study Torah. I'm just sharing this with a mini group, with our social networking group, posting it in the group. We are now live. Share the link. Facebook. For those that are already in, please do comments. I know that you're there. Also, if you would be kind enough to share this video with your pages on Facebook, that would be fantastic. So we can spread the study of Torah. Good morning, Ed Hockman. Great to see you. I'm going to share this with our other groups. Just before we actually start the Torah study here, the ladies are so welcome. We're delighted. Okay, and I'm going to share this with good. So if you could share this video, folks. Good morning, Dean. Good morning, Marty. Great to be here today. Wednesday morning. This is the third day of our sit-in, and we are making the best of this situation here. Hi, Shelly. Good morning. Good to see you. It's not the same without you folks over here, sitting in an empty room, but I do sort of feel that I'm not alone with so many of our friends and members. Robin Weiss. Wow. Robin used to be a member of our show. She now lives in Atlanta. And when we were back in downtown at the Gardens, Robin was a very devoted member of the show. Great to be able to reconnect with you, Robin, here. Terrific, really terrific. This is really a blessing of the Corona to be able to really go viral with our Torah study. So it's really special to be able to connect with everybody. Folks, this is live Torah study. If you don't like what I'm saying, or if you do like what I'm saying, then please let me know. Remember, it's not that easy talking to the computer here by myself. But when you comment and you engage, it certainly makes a very, very big difference. Thank you, Shelly. We are truly never alone. Thank you. Knowing that we have such great friends over here is really tremendous. It's extraordinary. Thank you. Hi, Miki. Hi, Graciela. The crowd is picking up. I see Elaine is on another format, so we don't see her, but she's here. And today's Wednesday, so make sure you're on the Wednesday link. And please, folks, if you could share the video, that would be great. Just a quick note that yesterday there were people that shared this video as a watch party. Now, when you share the video as a watch party on Facebook, what that basically means is that you as a group of friends are able to comment on a video, but the presenter can't see your comments. So, for example, if you're watching the Democratic debates or something, then you're able to watch it as a watch party with your friends. That's the watch party link that allows you as a group of friends to comment and talk to each other, but I don't see the comments. So I would love to see your comments, and that would be happening right here on this specific format. So the only thing that's annoying here is that the comments feed doesn't automatically upload. I have to go down there myself. So sometimes I miss the comments. It takes a few moments until I get there, but anyways, we'll work this out slowly. I was actually hearing from one of the doctors in the community who told me that he was able to study this Torah class on the way to work, and he asked if we could carry it on even after Corona. So it sounds like a great idea. I would love to do that. Really, really very special. Robin, the sound keeps breaking. I'm not sure why. Don't know. Maybe it's your internet connection. Let us know how that goes. Good morning, Rob. And I think we're ready to roll. Beautiful. We are ready to roll. Let's do this. Yesterday we hit about 30 viewers live. Let's see if we can make that even bigger today. So again, folks, if you could share the video on your Facebook pages, that would be tremendous. We are about to start. Let's do this. The format that we study in the mornings is that we start off with Hayom Yom. For those who don't know what that is a book. I'm going to show you the book. Here it is. Hayom Yom. From Day to Day. That's the name of the book. And it's got an entry, a thought, a meditation for every single day of the year. This was written by the Rebbe before the Rebbe was even appointed as Rebbe in 1943. And it's really a spiritual connection to the day. There's something in every single day that gives us something to think about. Hasidim have always felt that within the Hayom Yom lies the kernel of wisdom that you need to know to be able to get through your day. Hi, Stephanie. Good morning from Ibis. So let's do this. Today is the 22nd of Adar. And Yom Yom goes as follows. It tells us about the Haftarah of the Shabbos. My father writes in one of his Maimarim. So this would be the fifth Chabad Rebbe writes in one of his discourses. Regarding Seudah Shlishis, which is the third Shabbos meal, we have here Shelley, who's the head of our Kiddush team. Now, Shelley has mastered the art of the second Shabbat meal, and even the first, the Friday night dinner, as well as the Shabbos day. But Shelley, there is actually a third meal on Shabbos. It's called Seudah Shlishis. It's the third meal of Shabbos. And it says in the Talmud that whoever eats a third meal, 3 meals on Shabbos, will merit to go straight to heaven. It's obviously got to do with the notion of making the Shabbos special, making the Shabbat, the holy day of Shabbos, even more special by 3 meals. So concerning the third meal of Shabbos, we learn it from the verse. The third meal comes from the verse in the Torah when it speaks about the Jewish people, how they ate in the desert for 40 years. It says that every morning they would wake up, they would find manna. This was the miraculous bread that appeared on the ground every morning. And that manna was bread that came from heaven. They would actually make a blessing on it. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min hashamayim. Instead of saying hamotzi lechem min haaretz, blessing God for taking the bread out of the earth, they would say hamotzi lechem min hashamayim, who took the bread out of the heaven, because the manna was bread that literally came out of heaven. Good morning, Judy Schuster. Great to have you with us. It was bread that came out of heaven. So they made a blessing on bread that came out of heaven. But on Shabbos, there was no bread that came out of heaven. They got rather a double portion on Friday, and this is the reason why we eat 2 loaves of bread on Shabbat. We have 2 loaves of bread on Friday night and on Shabbos day, corresponding to the double portion of manna that the Jewish people received on Fridays, one for Friday, one for Shabbos. And there's a reason why we cover it with a little tablecloth on top of the challah and a tablecloth beneath the challah. You know, we have a white tablecloth on the Shabbos table, as well as another white tablecloth over the challah, to remind us of how the packaging how the packaging was received in the desert. When the food arrived in the desert, it came with a layer of dew above and a layer of dew below. It was nice and fresh. So to remember that's how we eat the challah on a Friday night and a Shabbos day today. But there's a third meal on Shabbos, and that third meal goes as follows. We learn it from the verse when it says about the bread that came in the desert. It says 3 times in the same verse, it says the word hayom, today. 3 times it says in the verse hayom, which means today, which from there the Talmud derives that 3 times on this day you're supposed to eat bread. Now, the 5th Chabad Rebbe taught as follows. He says, regarding the third meal of Shabbos, the allusion to the verse, today you will not find it, the Shabbos bread, means only that bread is not required at that meal, but we must partake of some food. Rabbi Yossi did say, may my lot be with those who partake of the 3 Shabbos meals. So just to explain, 3 times it says in the verse the word hayom, today, which is where we derive the obligation to eat 3 meals on Shabbos. However, the 3rd time that it says the word hayom, it says hayom lo, today not. Today you will not find the bread in the manna in the field. And some people understood that to mean that the 3rd meal is one that you're not supposed to eat, because it says hayom lo, today not. Today you will not find the bread in the field. But the 5th Rebbe explains that yes, you are supposed to eat a meal. It just means that you're not obligated to actually eat bread in that meal, but you are obligated to eat a 3rd meal. And in fact, if you do, then like Rabbi Yossi said in the Talmud, may my portion in heaven be with those who partake of 3 Shabbos meals. The Hayom Yom continues with a teaching about the 3rd prayer, or the 2nd prayer, which we pray daily. You know, corresponding to the 3 meals of Shabbos, there are 3 prayers that we pray daily. There's the morning service, there's the afternoon service, and there's the evening service called Shachris, Mincha, and Ma'ariv, respectively. What those 3 words mean are morning, afternoon, and evening. We pray to God 3 times, morning, afternoon, and evening. It's actually very interesting. that the reason that we make that prayer, I don't have a book here with me, but the reason that we make that prayer, we actually recite every morning just before the beginning of the service. We say, really, we're supposed to bring offerings to God in the temple. The morning offering was a daily offering, the afternoon offering was a daily offering, but now that our temple was destroyed, we can't bring the daily offerings. Therefore we don't have an option, but we bring daily prayers in exchange of or instead of the daily offerings in the temple. Now, which one of these three daily offerings or daily prayers are the most important? The Talmud tells us a man must always be careful regarding the mincha, the afternoon prayer. Now, the Alter Rebbe taught about this shortly after he came to Lyozhno, which is where the Alter Rebbe was Rebbe. He said like this: the meaning of the importance of the mincha service is like this. The special quality of mincha over the morning and evening service is that this one comes right in the middle of the day when people are occupied and busy with their affairs, yet they interrupt the middle of their business to daven, to pray mincha. This then is the deeper implication of the following teaching. So I just want to tell you a quick story about my grandfather. My grandfather, Reb Shalom, my son Shalom is named after him. Reb Shalom der Stoller, he was known in Jerusalem. Reb Shalom the Carpenter is what they called him. He lived in a neighborhood called Beit Yisrael, which means the house of Israel. It's still there today. There's actually a whole street of carpenters. They all work on the same street. It's called the Street of the Carpenters. And my grandfather had a store on the Street of the Carpenters. That store is still there today. My uncle, my father's brother, Tzvi, runs that store till this day, and the interior decorating has not changed in at least 75 years. Literally, nothing has changed. Every single day, at 3:15 it is, I believe, all the carpenters shutter their stores and they come into my grandfather's store. I believe it's in his store. And they all daven mincha together. You know, whether they're competitors or not makes no difference. They all stop their business. They come together in one of the carpentry stores. I believe it was in my grandfather's store. And that's where they daven. That's actually where I had my 3-year-old haircut. If you know what an upchernish is, you've seen it with some of my kids. When a son turns 3 years old, we make a special haircutting ceremony. And my haircutting ceremony, my upshernish, took place in my grandfather's store. My parents brought me from South Africa, and my grandfather cut my hair. So Reb Shalom, my grandfather, would always daven mincha together with all of his fellow carpenters down the street. They would stop their business. Customers, no customers, makes no difference. We're davening now. And that's the special quality of mincha, because to pray before you start your day, to pray after you finish your day, no, that's good. But to stop in the middle of what you're doing, in the middle of all the chaos and the hecticness, and to suddenly daven to Hashem, that is the most precious. And here's how the Alter Rebbe explains the deeper implication of the above exhortation. He said, Le'olam yehei adam zoyer b'tfilas mincha. The instruction in the Talmud says always a person should be careful, should be scrupulous in the mincha davening. The Alter Rebbe taught us in a deeper meaning, and this is the Chabad Hasidic interpretation of what it means to be scrupulous in the mincha davening. It's going to be a little bit deeper, so hold with me for a moment. L'olam, always, or more literally, for the world. Man's service in this world has got to do. The word la'olam means always a person should be careful with mincha, with the afternoon service. But you can also read the word to mean for the world, man should be careful with mincha. The word for the world and always is the same word in Hebrew. So for the world, our mission in this world, says the Alter Rebbe, the first Rebbe, is that a person should always be Yehei Adam. A person must be an Adam, which means a human. Humans are created vertically as opposed to animals that are horizontal. Our mind rules over our heart as opposed to animals which are in the same level, mind and heart. So a person's mission in this world is to be an Adam, to be a mensch, to be a person whose mind rules over his heart, to be mindful. And a person should be zahir, scrupulous, but also it means luminous, that form have dominance over the material, that spiritual dominate over the material, and this becomes evident in the mincha prayer. So our menschlichkeit, our being human, expresses itself in our ability to be mindful. That's the purpose that we were sent to this world, to have mind over matter. That when we're overcome with temptation or seduction or passion, we should be able to have purpose over passion, mind over matter, order over chaos, meditation over over instinct. That's to be a human. Where does this humanity of ours express itself in our ability to stop what we're doing and to daven mincha, to pray in the middle of the day? It takes no more than 15 minutes or 10 minutes to do a mincha service, an afternoon service. But you'll find it in the prayer book on page 101 in the blue siddur. It's very short. You just say Ashrei, and then you say the silent Amida, and then you say Aleinu L'Shabeach. By the way, in our prayer meditation course, we're going to be doing a real approach to that Aleinu L'Shabeach prayer to make it yours, that you can really sink your teeth into it. It's going to be starting soon, which I'm just putting final touches on the course. But this is the meaning of today's Yom Yom, which is that our mission in this world is to have mind over matters, to be able to be mindful over our instincts. And the way that expresses itself is that when we stop and daven in the middle of our day, we show that we're not just creatures of money or creatures of habit. We actually are mindful. We can stop what we're doing and pray the afternoon service. Today's second Hayom Yom, because sometimes this month is a leap month, not this year, but sometimes. The second Hayom Yom says as follows: Birkas Kohanim, the priestly blessing, elicits divine intellect. This is a little Kabbalistic. So if you lose me here, just hold your horses. So the priestly blessing, the Kohanim, just like Spock, they go like this. The priests on the high holidays. And they say, Yevarechecha Adonai Shem. This is my daughter Devorah's favorite song. Sometimes at 2:30 in the morning, when she wakes up, she tells me, Tati, ay 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 ay. She wants me to sing ay ay ay. So in the middle of the night, I have to go ay 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 ay. And she says, Isa. This is my daughter's lullaby. She loves it. I think she heard it at the high holidays, and it's stuck in her head. So when the priestly blessing takes place, this is the Kohanim in the congregation. These are the descendants of Aaron specifically. When they raise their hands, what they're doing is they're drawing down divine intellect. The raising of the hands by the priest is the elevation of the emotive attributes. Their blessing of Israel, children of kings, signifies Malchus, which is the attribute of kingship. Thus, we have the full configuration of the 10 divine attributes. Folks, that was a little spiritual, but basically what that means is, in brief, is that when the priest bless the congregation, it means we're drawing intellect down into emotion, all the way down to the people. We're going through the whole gamut of divine attributes. Let's leave it at that and just move straight into the laws of Pesach before we do Talmud. Now, the laws of Pesach, I've decided to switch just a little bit to go really down and practical, because I noticed that we had a lot of women that were joining this class. So I said, you know what, let's just go straight into the very practical laws of Pesach so that we can really be prepared for Pesach. I'd like to go specifically into the laws of koshering vessels, into the laws of koshering dishes for Pesach. Everybody knows that before Pesach you're supposed to. Everybody knows that on Pesach you got to kosher your dishes. Because food that's kosher all year round is not kosher on Pesach. Remember, the one thing that's treif on Pesach is fermented grain. Fermented grain. It's called chametz. Grain is wheat, barley, spelt, oats, or rye. Only the 5 kinds of grain: wheat, barley, spelt, oats, or rye. Only those 5 kinds of grain, when in contact with water for a minimum of 18 minutes, they ferment and they become chametz. So that's what we're avoiding. All year round, that's perfectly kosher. Only on the 8 days of Pesach, it's not kosher. So you either have to have a Pesach kitchen, which is a separate kitchen that you use only 8 days a year, or you have to kosher your dishes from all your use down to Pesach use. So what I'd like to do right now is to go through the laws of koshering your kitchen. So at least we'll get a little familiarity with how you can prepare yourself for Pesach. It's good for us to know as the Kiddush people, to know here at the shul how to kosher dishes. But in general, these laws apply all year round, because even if you use the dish for the wrong purpose, let's say you were making chicken soup, and by mistake you put in a dairy spoon into the chicken soup, that spoon becomes treif. So how can you kosher that spoon? That's what we're going to learn about right now. The laws of koshering vessels, and how you kosher them from non-kosher to kosher, how you kosher them from non-Pesachdik to Pesachdik. We're going to start that right now. A person should ideally have dishes that are prepared specifically for Pesach. And if he doesn't have dishes that are specifically prepared for Pesach, or if he wants to kosher a specific vessel or utensil to use it for Pesach, here we're going to learn about what is kosherable and what is not kosherable, and the principles of koshering. By the way, a lot of these laws are some of the very fundamental laws that we use in becoming a rabbi. You know, in rabbinical studies, you learn the laws of koshering vessels and the laws of kosher in general. Also, I want to tell you that in today's day and age, those that can afford it will just skip town for Pesach. They'll literally lock up their house and they'll go to Aspen, they'll go to Jerusalem, they'll go to Italy, they'll go to Miami, these kosher hotels, kosher for Pesach hotels. They're pretty pricey, but if you can afford it, let me tell you, it's awesome. You can just lock up your house. Don't have to scrub, scrape, or clean. It's the ultimate treat for the Yiddish balabasta. She doesn't have to do any cleaning for Pesach. You just close up the house and you go to a kosher hotel. Today, they're having a real problem with that, obviously, with the travel restrictions. I'm not sure exactly how they're going to handle that. Certainly, the kosher hotels in Italy are a problem this year. But what I did want to say to you was, the middle level would be what we did at home, is that when we redid our kitchen a couple years ago, we made a special Pesach cabinet inside of our kitchen. It's like right in the middle of the kitchen, big giant Pesach cabinet. Comes Pesach, what we do is we lock up the other cabinets and we open up this cabinet, which now becomes the Pesach, which has all the Pesach utensils. So it used to be that I had to schlep everything from the garage. I mean, talking about schlepping food processors, ovens, and it was horrible. But now what I do is I just open up the Pesach cabinet in the kitchen all year round. The kids know this is Pesach, and we don't touch it all year round. It's locked. Comes Pesach, we open it up and we just kosher. What we actually do is we kosher our countertops, we kosher our sinks, and we kosher our ovens, and we are ready for Pesach. And this is part of the preparation for Pesach. Just a quick answer to Robin's question that I missed earlier. What are you supposed to do if you don't eat wheat? I'm assuming that you're talking about what we learned earlier, which is the third meal of Shabbos. And if you don't eat wheat, you can always eat gluten-free challah. You're supposed to eat 3 meals on Shabbos, and at least the first 2 are supposed to have bread. If you can't eat gluten, then eat spelt challah or oat challah, then you're fine. 5 grains is good for bread. So there's even matzah shmura we learned about yesterday, the guarded matzah, the highest level of matzah, the round matzah that is guarded from the time of harvesting, that it won't come in contact with the water. Even that you can get oat matzah or spelt matzah. Just if you want to call the office here, 561-624-2223, and we can order some non-gluten or gluten-free matzah for you. But on Shabbos, you can certainly eat gluten-free challah. Let's go into this. Okay. What is kosherable and what is not kosherable? Porcelain vessels that were used for chametz cannot be koshered. So any earthenware vessels. But I think before we start here, I just got to explain the basic principles of how koshering works. This is a biblical law when Moses takes the people to fight against the Midianites. It's one of the last wars before he passes from this world. The Jewish people conquer the loot of the Midianites. It was tremendous amounts of vessels that they acquired when they beat the Midianites. So Moses tells them that you're going to have to do 2 things with these vessels. Number 1, you have to kosher them from non-kosher food that they were used for. Number 2, you're going to have to kosher them spiritually. The way you kosher them spiritually is that whenever you buy a vessel from a non-Jew, you have to dip it in a mikvah. So if you buy a vessel from a Midianite that you conquered in war, or if you buy a dish that you bought from Walmart or from Amazon, you have to dip it in a mikveh before you can start actually using it. Now, those mikvahs you can actually use in a lake or a river as well, or an ocean. There's a blessing that you make on it. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu v'tzivanu v'tzivanu al tevilas kelim, on the dipping of vessels in a mikvah. So that is separate to what we're talking about today, which is the mikveh of the vessels. We've heard about mikvahs for women for marriage, but there's a mikveh for vessels, which you use in order to spiritually elevate the vessels. But that's not what we're talking about today. Today we're talking about removing the non-kosher taste, which is inside of the vessels that were previously used for non-kosher. In the case of Moses and the biblical war against Midian, they were used for non-kosher foods before the Jews now conquered those vessels. But in our case, if you used a milchik spoon in a chicken soup, or if you used a fleshik knife in your omelet or your dairy omelet or something, then you need to kosher that vessel. Or if you want to prepare a vessel for Pesach that was previously used for chametz, here's how you kosher it. The principle is very, very interesting. The law is that the way that, one step back, not only is non-kosher treif, but even non-kosher flavor is treif. So what that means is like this, is that if the vessel was used for bacon, let's say the vessel is clean. You walk into a non-kosher restaurant. Can you eat food in the non-kosher restaurant? Can you eat kosher food in the non-kosher restaurant. Certainly it's better eating kosher food than to eat non-kosher food. But can you use their dishes? So can you, let's say, order a salmon in a non-kosher restaurant? Now, obviously it's better to order a salmon than to order the bacon, for sure. Absolutely. However, there's a second problem with the salmon. Even though the salmon is a kosher fish, because it's cooked in their dishes, in their pots and pans and frying pans and on their plates, the flavor of the bacon or of the non-kosher food is actually ingrained inside of the pots and pans and plates and forks and knives. So when you eat kosher fish with non-kosher vessels, you're actually extracting the non-kosher flavor from those forks and knives and plates. So you have to kosher those dishes and forks and knives to take the non-kosher flavor out. In other words, the two parts to non-kosher. There's the non-kosher food itself, and then there's the non-kosher flavor, which is embedded within the non-kosher utensils. How do you get the flavor out? The principle is, taught by Moses, is that the same way that the flavor goes in is the same way that the flavor goes out. Which means, if the flavor came in through an open flame, then the flavor goes out through an open flame, through a blowtorch. So let's say a lamb on a spit. Lamb on a spit. You had a non-kosher lamb cooking on a spit, and you want to kosher that spit, that barbecue. How do you kosher a barbecue? With a blowtorch. You turn on the blowtorch strong enough, and that would make it kosher. The non-kosher flavor came in through open fire, therefore come out through open fire. But sometimes the non-kosher flavor comes in through, not through dry heat, but through wet heat. For example, you made a soup and you want to kosher the soup pot. Then that soup pot acquired the non-kosher flavor through wet heat, right? Because you were cooking non-kosher meats in the soup. So the way to get that out is by dipping that vessel inside of a boiling hot water. Dry koshering is called libun, which means whitening, white heat, like white hot blowtorch heat. Wet koshering is called hagala, which means boiling water. And those are the two ways that we will be able to be applying the principles of how to kosher kitchens, how to kosher vessels. It all depends on how the non-kosher flavor came in, right? So for example, you'll notice here at the shul, we at the shul have something called, what are those things called, those ovens? They're called warming ovens, right? The warming ovens that we warm the kiddushes. How would you kosher a warming oven for Pesach? Since the flavor comes in through dry heat, you have closed vessels in there, and they sit inside of the warming ovens, the flavor came into the walls of the oven through dry heat. Therefore, when you blowtorch the oven, you're able to kosher that oven. Something which is really awesome in our generation is that we have self-cleaning ovens. Now, it used to be in the olden days that in order to kosher an oven, you had to literally climb inside of the oven with a blowtorch and just sit there for a couple hours and just blowtorch every square inch of the walls of the oven. That was, you can just imagine a horrible experience. But today, what you do is that you close up the oven, you clean it out, obviously, and you close it up and you put it on self-clean mode, and this thing cleans itself. It is now self-cleaning for 5 or 6 hours, however long it takes to self-clean an oven. And by the time you're done, you have now self-cleaned your oven. It's got more heat than you could possibly have put in there yourself with your blowtorch. And whatever non-kosher flavor or non-Pesach flavor was in there before is now completely gone. And that's the principle of how kosher in kitchens works. The way the flavor goes in is the way the flavor goes out. However, when it comes to the specific kinds of utensils, we have various rules. For example, earthenware vessels that we use for chametz cannot be koshered through wet heat, and neither can they be koshered through dry heat, right? Even if you've never used them at all, you've only used them in cold chametz, our custom is not to use them at all in Pesach, even for cold Pesach use. Now, what's the reason for this? The reason is because earthenware vessels are porous, and we believe, according to Jewish law, the sages of the Talmud ruled that the flavor never really gets out of them entirely. Because they're porous, some of the flavor always will stay in there, and therefore, no matter, even if you do the most powerful form of koshering, which is through through dry heat, it will never actually get all the flavor out of this. So therefore, earthenware vessels, forget about koshering them. If you have earthenware porcelain plates or whatever kind of earthenware stuff, I guess china. I'm pretty sure that China is earthenware. It's like porcelain. So China cannot be kosher. If you've got a China dish, China set from your great grandmother, and it's very sentimental, and you want to kosher it, you can't, because it's porcelain, it's earthenware, and therefore you cannot kosher it through boiling water. You cannot kosher it through dry heat. You got a problem, and therefore you just have to make the decision of not using it during Pesach or not using it for kosher. One more piece of here before we finish, before we go into Talmud, is that so he said, I'm sorry, he said an interesting point of here. The point that the code said here was that even if you used it through wet heat, even if you used it in cold, as for cold food, you also can't use it cold during Pesach. Now, I'm going to conclude this section with this piece, and that's as follows: that the flavor, how does the flavor go from the food into the utensil? How does the flavor go from the food into the fork, the knife, the pot? It's got to have a medium. That medium is one of a few ways. It's either through heat. Heat is the most common. So, for example, if you put a spoon into a boiling pot of chicken soup, then that chicken soup goes into the spoon goes into the chicken soup. Transfer of flavor from food to vessel happens through heat or through spicy foods. Let's say you're working with onions or peppers, then the flavor will transmit even if it's not hot, if it's spicy. Or if there's a concept called duchka de sakina, which is the force of the knife. If you're cutting something with a knife, even like an apple, you're cutting with a knife, because of the pressure of the knife, the flavor goes out of the knife into the onion, into the apple, or vice versa, because of the pressure of the knife. So the knife actually serves as a medium to transfer the flavor from the food to the vessel and vice versa. So a non-kosher knife cutting a kosher apple will become a problem. And the fourth way is, even if it was used in cold, if it was submerged in cold liquid for 24 hours, then it's considered as if it was cooked in hot heat. So, for example, if you have a pot that had treif soup inside of it cold for 25 hours, even though the soup was cold, then the flavor goes from the treif soup into the pot after 25 hours of sitting in cold liquid. So these are the four ways the flavor transmits from the food to the vessel and vice versa. Again, through heat, or through spicy foods, or through the pressure of the knife, or through the cold liquid, right? So any of these methods will be such that the flavor can transfer. However, if you have a vessel that was used with none of the above, right? Let's say you got a spoon that was never used in heat with tray food, never used with spicy foods, was never used with the pressure of the knife, or never submerged in liquid for 24 hours, then you don't really have a problem with it. You don't really need to kosher such a vessel. And with that, I'm going to switch over to the Talmud, folks. So here we are. If you just joined us, thank you everybody for joining us for Torah study here today. We are learning the stories of the Talmud as they are taught in this book here, Ein Yaakov. Ein Yaakov refers to the author, Yaakov, I forget his last name. This guy lived in the 1400s. He was born in 1450s. He lived in Spain. His name is Rabbi Yaakov ben Shlomo ibn Chaviv. He was born in Zamora, Spain. This the wine that we love to use here at the shul is the Zamora wine. It's actually made in Israel. It's called Zamora. It's like a Merlot-y kind of wine. Very, very sweet, beautiful. It's sweet Merlot. It's very good. But he was born in Zamora, Spain in 1445. And what this guy did is that he collected all the stories of the Talmud and he cut out all the legal aspects of the Talmud so that we can just study light, beautiful wisdom of Talmud. The Alter Rebbe, the founder of Chabad, says that the study of Talmud, of Ein Yaakov, the stories of the Talmud, inspires us to the fear of heaven and assures us a portion in the world to come. So it's definitely a good deal. I want to say welcome to Tali Shouter from Gainesville. I'm not sure if you're home yet, Tali, or not, but welcome to our Torah study here this morning, folks. If you have any questions, comments, or critique, please do comments and let me know what you're thinking. It makes it much more exciting when I know what you're thinking and where you're at. So please don't be shy. We're learning today something beautiful, which is about a person We're actually on page 67. If you happen to have the books here, if you want to pick up this book from Shul, feel free to do so. Ashley is here during the daytime, and you can come by and pick up the Ein Yaakov, so you have it when we study it every day. We study this every morning, 8:30 here during coronavirus. Even not during coronavirus, you study. But if you want to pick up a copy of the book, you can come to the Shul and pick it up, so you can follow along with us. We're on page 67. If you do have the book at home with you, if you don't, you can just listen in and follow along with us. Souls on Fire, Wednesday morning Torah study. If you just joined us, this is how we roll every morning at the Chabad Palm Beach Gardens. And during this coronavirus quarantine situation, we are making lemonade out of lemons and taking this opportunity to go global with our Torah study. It's always exciting when we have people from around the world joining us for Torah study. I can't actually see on Facebook who is joining us always. I can see that we have 18 people in this class right now. I see that we have 21 comments, but I can't tell exactly who's listening. So if you are from an interesting place or not, just point yourself out, say hi in the comments section. Who's listening, so we can, make it more exciting. Just to keep it interesting here. Anyway, so I see I got a question coming in on my text message from someone who's Facebook challenged. That is like this: if non-kosher flavor is treif, what about fake bacon and shellfish? Well, Elaine, I'll tell you this. If it's either treif or it isn't. It might look like a pig, it might smell like a pig, and it might taste like a pig. But if it's not a pig, then it's not treif. No problem with having non-kosher flavor as long as it's, we have kosher sushi, which is crab inside, but it's only fake crab. It's the real crab. So it's something called bacon. If you ever had bacon, it tastes exactly like bacon. Well, I would never know, but bacon is fake bacon. It's just supposed to taste like bacon, but it's not. It's actually kosher meat. So there's no reason to kosher something which is not fake, which is not actually treif. In other words, the spirit of kosher is not a problem. If something looks like a pig and it tastes like a pig, but it's not a pig, there's nothing to kosher with. It reminds me of the story of the rabbi who decides to go down to Mexico he decides he's going to just let loose one time. So he goes down to Mexico and he's in a non-kosher hotel all by himself. Nobody's there, far, far away from his congregation. And he decides he's going to pig out. He's going to the pleasures of the world. He orders the pig, the whole pig situation, the roast. It's a horrible story, but whatever. So he's out there and he's and as the waiter comes out, trying to bring the rabbi, he's trying to experience the pleasures of this world. He notices that his president and the chairman and half the daily minion walks into the restaurant. They say, "Rabbi, what are you doing here? We had no idea you were here. It's so exciting." And at the same time, the waiter is bringing out this pig, with the apple in his mouth, the whole situation down to the rabbi. And the rabbi does not know where to put himself. So as they sit around and he's got to come up with something, got to think quick, the rabbi says, "This place is so full of anti-Semites. A rabbi orders an apple, and look how they serve him." Anyways, we only avoid treif if it's actually treif. We don't avoid treif if it looks like it's treif. Okay, and that's the principle. Okay, so let's go on with the Talmud study. We're on page 67 if you have the book, and we are learning at the very, very bottom of the page. It goes like this. What does, and for those who contemplate his name, teach us? Rav Ashi says, it teaches that even if a person planned to do a mitzvah, but was then unavoidably prevented from doing it, Scripture considers it as if he had actually done it. So if you wanted to do a mitzvah, and for some unavoidable reason you couldn't do it, the Torah considers it as if you actually did fulfill that mitzvah. And that's what we're going to talk about today. It's like coronavirus. You want to come to the shul. We want to enjoy the Kiddush. We want to get together as a community. We want to study. We want to learn. We want to pray. We want to worship. But we can't because this Corona mashugas is going on. We cannot learn together. We cannot pray together as a community. We cannot do the mitzvahs that we all want to do together. So it's considered as if you actually did it. Let's learn what this means. Why is a mere plan to do a mitzvah credited as if it were carried out? I'm at the very bottom of the page. The commentary Meshech Chochmah explains that a Jew by his very nature wants to satisfy God's will and devote himself to mitzvah performance. This became part of his makeup when our forefather Isaac allowed himself to be bound and placed on the altar at the Akedah when he was bound up upon the altar by his father, prepared to be slaughtered as a human sacrifice to God. He was subsequently removed from the altar, but from that point on, it became second nature for his descendants to submit to God's will and to give up their lives and fortunes to sanctify his name, as countless Jews from all walks of life have done, especially in the last 2,000 years of exile. So ever since our forefather Isaac willingly offered himself up as an offering upon the altar under the mistaken notion that God wanted him to be sacrificed, which is not true. God does never wants human sacrifice, and he tells us so. But Isaac and Abraham thought they misunderstood the intention. They thought that's what God wanted, and Isaac was willing to sacrifice his life for God. He didn't end up doing so. As we read about every morning and during Rosh Hashanah service, the angel came at the last minute and stopped him. But from that moment on, it became our nature to want to give up our lives for God. This idea is not merely a point of ideology. It is the basis of a practical law regarding a bill of divorce. A very, very interesting law regarding the bill of divorce. The law is with regard to divorce. I'll just explain this orally first. When a man or woman want to get divorced, the man has to order a scribe to write a get. It looks like a bit of a Torah scroll. You write a scroll upon a parchment, like a mezuzah, and it says it's a bill of separation. It's a certain template which separates the woman from the man, and he has to give it to her. But the man has to want the scribe to write this bill of divorce. What happens if you have a man who's a total jerk, who doesn't want to grant his wife a divorce? Such a woman is not allowed to marry any other man because she's legally married to her husband. She's obviously not living with her husband, but he's not giving her a divorce. So she can't be with any other man. She's legally married. Such women are called agunot chayot, living agunot. Agunot means somebody, the word aguna, which is a woman that's in limbo, is the same word as an anchor of a ship. An anchor of a ship is like a ship in the middle of the ocean. When it's anchored, it can't move. So to a woman whose husband doesn't want to give her a get, she's anchored, she's stuck. Because on the one hand, she can't live with her husband because they don't like each other. But she also can't marry anyone else because she's stuck to her husband. So it's a very uncomfortable situation when a woman is stuck like that when her husband doesn't release her with the get. So what happens then is that we might, the Torah tells us that we might make the husband want to give her a get. How do we make the husband want? Well, desperate times calls for desperate measures. Sometimes you meet him in a dark alley and you convince him to want to give her the get. But obviously the question is asked, if he doesn't really want to give her the get, his saying so is merely lip service. So what's the point of having him say that he wants to give her the get when he doesn't really want to give her the get? The answer is that deep down, a husband, a Jew, really wants to do the right thing. Even if on the outside, it looks like he doesn't want to do the right thing. Even if he thinks he wants to do the wrong thing, nevertheless, deep down, a Jew always wants to do the right thing. So therefore, when we pin this guy down, literally, and we make him say, give her a get, that is not mere lip service. It's actually expressive of a far deeper reality, his deep desire and will, which is to do the right thing. Let's learn this in the words of the Talmud here, the Talmud commentary. Folks, I do know this is a very controversial note, so if you want to let me know your thoughts, please comment. This idea is not merely a point of ideology. It is the basis of a practical law regarding a bill of divorce. Generally, a divorce is valid only if the husband grants it out of his own free will, not if he was coerced in some way. There are, however, specific situations in which Torah law requires a husband to divorce his wife and thus allows a court, a beis din, to coerce him to perform his obligation and grant his divorce. Maimonides raises the question of how this exceptional law satisfies the general principle that a husband must grant divorce in a free-willed manner. He answers Maimonides that deep down a Jew always wants to do the right thing, to satisfy God's will. It is only when this essential desire is suppressed by other motives and considerations that a Jew fails to act as he should. In this light, the pressure applied by the beis din on a recalcitrant husband does not force him to do something against his will. Rather, it enables him to overcome his less noble inclinations and do what he truly wants to do deep down, to fulfill his Torah obligation to divorce his wife. So deep down, says Maimonides, every single Jew wants to do the right thing. If he doesn't know that he wants to do the right thing, that's his problem. But really, deep down, he actually does want to do the right thing. Every Chabad rabbi in the world knows this. Every single Chabad rabbi that encounters another Jew knows that deep down, the Jew wants to do the right thing. You know, there's only one way to get off the Chabad mailing list. You know what that is? It's a permanent forwarding of the address to the cemetery. But as long as you're alive, we believe in every single Jew. Even if the Jew himself or herself doesn't believe in themselves, the Chabadniks believe in them, because we know that every single Jew has a beautiful, brilliant, dazzling, godly soul inside. And that godly soul is desperate to do a mitzvah. It wants to do the right thing. So even when you have a situation where a Jew will throw you out of his office and say, Rabbi, don't ever call me again, right? We know that deep down they are in a state of cognitive dissonance, where their soul wants to do the right thing and their mind or their animal soul is overwhelming their godly soul. So we know that a Jew always wants to do the right thing, especially in light of Tanya. This makes a lot of sense, because we have not one but two souls. We have a godly soul and an animal soul. The animal soul is self-oriented. The godly soul is purpose-oriented. It's God-oriented. So our godly soul wants to always do the right thing. Our animal soul wants to just have pleasure. So one soul wants purpose, the other soul wants pleasure. When we realize, based upon Tanya, what we learned yesterday, every Tuesday morning at 9:30, we learned that we're constantly in a tug of war. We have a godly soul that wants to do the right thing and an animal soul that just wants to be selfish. With this understanding, it makes perfect sense to us, the notion that every single Jew always wants to do the right thing. So when it comes to a husband that is being a jerk, who doesn't want to release his wife to the rest of the world to marry whomever she wants, such a husband, if you force him to verbalize that he wants to give the get, you're not just making him do lip service, you're actually making him express his truest desire, which is his godly soul. Let me take a look at the notes here. But didn't that ruin the relationship with his father Abraham? No. Marty, Isaac's binding upon the altar certainly did not ruin his relationship with his father Abraham. Do you know how old Isaac was when his father bound him upon the altar? You know, in all the illustrations, we see him as like a little baby. But he was 36 years old. His father did not make him do this. He did this very much on his own volition. In fact, when they were on the way to the binding of Isaac, Isaac says to his father, he says, Dad, I see the knife and I see the fire. I just don't see the offering. So what's the plan? So father says, you're it. Abraham says to him, you are the offering. And then the verse proceeds to say, they proceeded together, both not just physically together, but also emotionally together. So absolutely, Marty, Abraham and Isaac were very, very much together on this situation. I'm not sure why you think that they ruined their relationship. Mickey's comment, Rabbi, a long time ago, I almost put in jail 3 chassids who kidnapped and tried to hold over Shabbos someone who would not give a get. How far can you go in forcing someone to give the get? Now, yes, you're right. You really can't take the law into your own hands, and I would never, ever be a proponent of such. You know, you've got to follow the law of the land. You've got to do the right thing. So the way it was done in South Africa, for example, was a beautiful method that they did. A very, very organized Jewish community. You know, I just came back from there last week. There's only 45,000 Jews in the whole country, and they have got it together. Jewish life in South Africa is just flourishing, with countless Jewish schools and countless restaurants and supermarkets and butcheries and just everything. They've just got everything. They really put us to shame. What they have in Palm Beach, in South Africa, the same amount of Jews that we have in North Palm Beach County. Just north, forget Boynton. I mean, just West Palm, Palm Beach Gardens, and Jupiter is the whole South Africa, and they just have it together. We can barely survive here with one restaurant. They've really pulled it together. So what they did in South Africa is that they made it law of the land that you can't get a civil divorce unless you get a religious divorce first. So that forced the husbands to make sure that they don't torture their wives. Look, you know, you got to use your own discretion, Mickey, basically. Don't break the law. Use coercive tactics, but just don't break the law. Don't ever break the law. You got to go by the law of the land. So yes, somebody who does break the law should probably go to jail. Anyways, let me see. Oh, there's more comments here. Marty, I'm not sure what your 60 means. Hi, Alina. Rob Berger, why is it assumed that the man wants to give the get? What if the man has a valid reason not to give a get? Correct. Fair enough. Fair enough. You know, sometimes it happens that a woman might not be healthy. She might not be taking her meds. Maybe she's got some mental problem. And the husband loves her deeply, and he feels it's the right thing not to give her a get. You're right. You're right. That's why you have to use your own discretion. You don't just have this get police walking around that are just breaking people's arms, God forbid, taking this to an extreme, just because they don't want to give a get. Obviously, you got to deal with this on a case-by-case basis, and you got to analyze the situation. And if a husband is torturing his wife, that's when you might want to use creative methods of convincing him to give her a get. But if the situation is different, it's certainly not a one-size-fits-all situation there, Rob. Rob Wertheimer, but Isaac never spoke to Abraham again. Isaac never spoke to Abraham again. I don't agree with you. Maybe it wasn't recorded in the Torah that their conversation, maybe their conversation wasn't recorded, but I mean, we don't meet Abraham until he's 75 years old. The first 75 years of Abraham's life, we know nothing about him in the Torah. That doesn't mean that he wasn't talking to anybody. It just means that we don't need to know about it in the Torah. So the Torah only tells us the very, very most important elements of these people's lives that we need to know for all time's sake. So obviously, we don't need to know more about the engagements between Abraham and Isaac. But hey, listen, the facts speak for themselves. The guy was 36 years old. Draw your own conclusion. If you think you can force your 36-year-old son to do anything, go for it. But it says in the Code of Jewish Law that a father should cease from striking his child. It's interesting, King Solomon, the wisest of all men, says, "Chosech shivto soneh bno." The one who withholds the rod from his son hates his son. If you're never going to strike your child, you're never going to educate them properly. It's important to educate them properly. I remember to this day, there was something that I did when I was 14. I was on a rebellious streak, and my father found out about it. He gave me such a pachin upon him. I remember exactly the spot where I was. Until today, when I go to Johannesburg, I avoid that spot like the plague. It's, my father gave me the last patch I ever got. But boy, oh boy, did he knock me into shape. So, and I thank him for it. I am grateful that he did that because I was kind of teetering. I was wavering with the bad influence of my friends. And thank God he knocked me back into shape. You do have to educate your children. Just like if your child is playing in the street, you're not going to, or playing with fire, you're not going to say, "Oh, sweetie pie, please don't play with the fire. Please don't play in the street." You don't say that to your 5-year-old. You give him a patch upon him to educate him and make him realize that what he's doing is dangerous and unacceptable. But the code says that after the age of 24, you should no longer strike your child because it probably will backfire. So after the age of 24, it's too late. Whatever you are, you can't make your child do anything anymore. So certainly by the age of 36, folks, you cannot make your child do anything else. And that's the bottom line. So any conversation about Abraham no longer speaking to his son Isaac, that them not being on talking terms because somehow Abraham pulled the wool over Isaac's eyes is not a good argument, I believe, because I'm very convinced that Isaac came into this well aware of what he was doing. The question, however, I want to ask you is that if Isaac was so well aware of what he was getting himself into, then why is this called the test of Abraham? Hi, Susan. Good morning. Great to have you with us. Why is it called the test of Abraham? Why is it not called the test of Isaac? I mean, what's harder? Being the one doing the killing of Isaac or being the one being killed? What do you think? Is it easier to be killed or to be the killer? I would think that this should be called the test of Isaac, not the test of Abraham. The answer that I like to say is a very meaningful answer, and that is like this. Yes, certainly this was a tremendous test of faith for Isaac, to willingly let himself be bound upon the altar and to let his father hold a sharp knife to his neck and be getting ready to slaughter his son. So for Isaac, to be willing to die for God was a very big deal. But even more powerful than that was for Abraham to be willing to live for God. See, to die for God is relatively quick. You die and it's all over. But think of Abraham, who would have to live for the rest of his life with the guilt that he killed his own son. That ability to live for God is even more challenging than it is to die for God. Not to minimize the power of dying for what you believe in. But it's one thing, we Jews tend to be very, very, I see Marty agrees with me. It's more difficult to kill one's child. We Jews tend to be very faithful at life or death moments. When the shuls fill up, when a war breaks out in Israel, everybody comes running to the shuls because this is life or death. Israel's, at death's door. We got to storm heaven's door. We got to pray from the from the depths of our heart. And we're right. This is very, very powerful. It's a life or death moment. But what about regular life? It's much harder to find your faith when life is normal more than it is when your back's against the wall. And that's the great challenge of Abraham. That's why it's called the test of Abraham. Okay. Anyway, so let's just continue this idea of why it is. We're learning in the Talmud and Tractate Brachot on page 68. If you have this Ein Yaakov book, the collected stories of the Talmud by the 15th century scholar Rabbi Yaakov ben Shlomo ibn Chaviv, born in Zamora, Spain in 1440 something. We're learning now that it says in the Talmud that if you had intent to do a mitzvah and you were unavoidably prevented from doing it, the Torah considers it as if you actually fulfilled that mitzvah. So we said over here that the deep nature of every single Jew is to do the right thing. At the core of every single one of us is goodness. I don't know what the Christians mean when they talk about original sin. I might be wrong, but my understanding of original sin is that we somehow are all default evil. I think that's what they're talking about. I'm no expert in Christianity, but as Jews, we believe in original purity. Our essence is holy. Our essence is pure and good. Hence, the word repentance is a very bad translation of the word teshuvah. We don't repent. To repent implies that I'm now bad and I'm going to change myself to become good. The word in Hebrew is teshuvah, which means not repent, it means to return. The word means to return. What am I returning to? Returning to my default setting, which is good, because my essence is actually good. My essence is holy, it's pure, it's a godly soul that wants to do the right thing. Any sin that I've ever done is a perversion of my true self. Hence, when I do teshuvah, I'm not becoming something which I'm not. I am returning to that which I am originally. I'm becoming my factory setting, which is good. And that's what the Talmudic commentary is telling us here right now. That when it comes to a husband who's being a jerk, who doesn't want to divorce his wife for all the wrong reasons, when we force him to say that he wants to give the get, then that is not inconsistent with his true desire, because his true desire is actually to do the right thing. This idea concludes Meshech Chachma Gemara well. When a Jew decides to perform a mitzvah, he is crystallizing a deep desire to do God's will. That desire is so firmly rooted in his heart that there is little chance it will be displaced by his evil inclination. And little chance that he will fail to follow through on this decision. As far as he is concerned, the mitzvah act is as good as done, barring some unexpected obstacle like coronavirus that is beyond his ability to overcome. He is therefore given credit immediately for performing the mitzvah, even if circumstances beyond his control prevent him from acting as he originally planned. How does planning to do a mitzvah connect to the first part of the verse? What did it say in the verse? Let's see the verse. The verse said, we were talking yesterday about a minyan. We were talking yesterday about a minyan and how a minyan is 10 people because God stands in the divine assembly. Here's the verse. It says, then those who fear God spoke to one another and God listened. We were talking about the fact that whenever two people talk about Torah, God is present. Whenever two people are talking Torah. And it's not only two Jewish males over the age of 13. This is even women. This is even children. Whenever there are two people that are talking Torah, God is present. If you want to invite God into your home, talk Torah. What you're doing right now, as you're studying Torah with me, is that both of us are inviting the presence of God, and God is literally listening. As stated in this verse here, this verse comes from Malachi. Malachi, which is the last prophet of Israel. Some say in the Talmud that Malachi was also Mordechai of the Purim story. It's the same person, according to one opinion in the Talmud Tractate Tainus. It says, then those who feared God spoke to one another, and Hashem listened. So whenever a person speaks to his friend about God, God listens and heard, and a book of remembrance was written before him for those who fear Hashem and for those who contemplate his name. So the end of the verse teaches us that even if those who contemplate his name means even if you planned on doing a mitzvah but you didn't actually do the mitzvah, it's considered as if you did the mitzvah. So he's asking now, how does planning to do a mitzvah connect to the first part of the verse? Reb Baruch Ber Leibovich explains the verse speaks of the God-fearing people who gather to speak to one another, perhaps to discover solutions to the pressing problems of declining Torah observance. There are those who will throw up their hands in despair and say, all these ideas are pointless. Nothing that we do will help. The end of the verse addresses this cry of hopelessness. Be among those who contemplate his name. Plan whatever improvements you can, for even in the end, circumstances will block your success. You will receive the reward for your mitzvahs if you had succeeded. Okay, interesting commentary. He says over here that if you're trying to save Yiddishkeit, save Judaism, so to speak, and you run into a problem that you feel you can't overcome, and that's the purpose, the meaning of the beginning of the verse. The people that were trying to overcome the problems of keeping Judaism alive. It's saying, don't worry about it. God will consider your reward as if you did it. This is not a Chabad approach. The Chabad approach is that we're not interested in our reward. We couldn't care less about what kind of reward I'm going to get. What I care about is getting the job done. A Chabadnik always asks, not what God can do for me, but what I can do for God. Not what the world can do for me, but what I can do for the world. So I couldn't care less that I'm assured of my reward. What I care about is to make sure that every last Jew will be reached, even if right now we have an insurmountable circumstance, which is this quarantine going on. And I'm just so proud to be able to say that we here have been able to overcome this problem by studying Torah here on our Torah study, which is online. I'm going to do just a little bit further in the Talmud. I'm just going to plug in my computer. Just give me a quick second. My battery's about to die. Just 1 second. Okay. No, not working. It should be working. 1 second. Should be working now. Sorry. Says that the light is on, so hopefully my battery's not going to die anymore. We'll just go a little bit further, folks, over here in the Talmud. The Gemara resumes its teachings about where the divine presence comes to rest. And from when do we know that even when one person sits alone and studies Torah, not only when you have a minyan, that God is present, not only when you have two people studying Torah together, that God is present, but where do we know that even when you study Torah all by yourself, the divine presence is with him? For it says in the verse in Exodus, wherever I cause my name to be mentioned, I will come to you and bless you. Since the word to you, Elecha, is written here in the singular form, it teaches that the divine presence comes to rest even when one person studies Torah alone. I got to tell you, folks, so that in my own experience as a rabbi, as a Jew, really, when I feel maybe overwhelmed or when I feel that I need God's blessing, I will study Torah on my own, all by myself. And I'll study Torah deeply and personally and privately. And I always feel that the salvation comes as a result of that. And I want to share that with you because, we're living in very lonely times right now when we're physically quarantined and, social distancing. It's very, very hard. I want to encourage you that when you study Torah, God is with you. You're not alone. You really come together. We really come together as one when, the blessing comes upon us. And if you're feeling alone and you study Torah, you can really bring the blessing upon you in the most beautiful and extraordinary way. I actually want to encourage you folks that there is a beautiful publication called Chayenu, Chayenu, Chayenu.org, Chayenu.org. I'll actually post it in the comments here. I want to encourage you to go online and see if you can subscribe to this. There's a free subscription where you can, I just posted it in the comments, you can go to this thing and it's a free subscription of a Torah publication that comes to your home. It gets mailed to your home, where you can study the daily portion of Chumash, of Tehillim, of Tanya, and it's all in English. So it's made for the average Palm Beach Jew to be able to study Torah on their own. Wherever you are in the world, you can take it with you. And this way, God is with you every single day. You never go a day without God because you study Torah every single day, not just regular Torah. You're studying the same Torah as millions of Jews are studying around the world. These are the study cycles that the Rebbe instituted, learning one portion of Chumash of that week every day, one portion of Tanya, one portion of Tehillim, one portion of Maimonides. So you cover the whole Torah in 1 year. And that really is a very, very special blessing that it brings upon you to draw the blessing of God upon you when you study Torah by yourself. So I want to encourage you, go to chayenu.org. They'll ship this thing to you for 3 months, I think, for free. After that, I think it's like $100 a year maybe for the shipping. We get a copy here at the Chabad, and I really want to encourage you to subscribe to this thing so that you can study Torah, because that's exactly what we just learned. When you study Torah by yourself, even if it's all by yourself, God comes to you. I can tell you that, running the Chabad at Palm Beach Gardens is not easy. It takes tremendous courage and faith. You can just imagine running a business of this kind of budget. It's not easy, So I can tell you that on a day that I didn't study my daily Torah study, things just don't flow. I just hit these brick walls. Sometimes I'll tell the office, just do me a favor, hold my calls, don't interrupt me. I need to just catch up on my daily Torah study. And when I do that, I kid you not, everything just starts to flow. The yeses, the mail, the good news, it just starts to flow. I just feel the presence of God in my daily Torah study. And I want to encourage you to take your personal relationship with God to the next level through personal Torah study. Where you were until now, whatever you've been studying Torah until now, is fantastic. But let's make today the first day of the rest of your life. I really want to encourage you to subscribe to this beautiful publication, chayenu.org. I just posted it here in the comment section. They're providing it for free for the first 3 months, just a trial subscription, just to see if you like it. Have it mailed to your house. See if you like it. It's definitely a worthwhile investment based upon what we just learned, which is God is always coming to you when you study Torah, even if it's by yourself. The Gemara asks, but since this last verse teaches that the divine presence comes to rest even when one person studies alone, the obvious question is there a need for the earlier verse to teach that the divine presence comes to rest when two people study Torah together? Obviously, when I'm studying Torah alone, God is with me. For sure, God is going to be with me when I study Torah with someone else. So why do I need a separate verse in the Torah to tell me that even when there's two people, God comes to you when you study Torah? The Gemara answers, there's a reason. We need both the verse to tell me when I'm studying alone that God is with me, and the verse when I'm studying with someone else that God is with me, because it's needed to teach that when two people study together, their words are inscribed in, quote, the book of remembrance. As it says in that verse, a book of remembrance was written before him. So when you're studying on your own, God is with you, but your words aren't written. When you're studying with someone else, the verse said, I'm going to quote you that verse again, then those who fear God spoke to one another, two people, and God listened, he was present, and heard, and a book of remembrance was written before him. Your words were actually noted. So when you're studying on your own, God is there. But when you're studying with someone else, your words are written, signed, and sealed. When one person studies Torah alone, however, his words are not inscribed in the book of remembrance. Okay, very nice. What's the difference? Let's see if we have a note here to explain the difference. The notes here say as follows. When two people study Torah together, they come to a true understanding of the subject through their discussion and exchange of ideas. Thus, their words are fit to be written in God's book of remembrance. One who studies Torah alone, however, may make a mistake. Therefore, his words are not worthy of being written in this book. Every person's deeds are written in a book. However, that is the individual's book. Every deed that you do is written in a book. This is something which is an ancient concept in the Torah. It says every single thing that you do is written in a book. It was very hard for us to relate to this until Apple phones came out, the iPhone, where now we know if you want to see the history, there's a function on your iPhone that can tell you exactly where you were every single minute of the past 20 years. It can tell you exactly where you were. And you know what? It could probably record every single conversation. For heaven's sake, this conversation that we're having now is probably being recorded on my iPhone. This is on Apple. They're probably listening in to us right now. If not Apple, then probably at Amazon. Put it this way. If Jeff Bezos, the guy that is eavesdropping on all of our homes through the Amazon Echo and Alexa, if he himself was hacked by the Prince of Saudi Arabia and it destroyed his marriage, then there's no hope for the rest of us. Every single one of us is being eavesdropped. It's pretty awful thought, but it puts into sharp focus the teaching of the Talmud, which says that every single thing that we do is recorded in a book. So even if you study Torah on your own, it's being recorded in an individual book. Our Gemara here, the Talmud here refers to being written in a book together with others. Alternatively, our Talmud means that the words of Torah studied together are written in a book. So the words of Torah that you study together are written in a book. Let's just finish this up, folks, for today. One last question. The Gemara asks further, but since the divine presence accompanies even two people who study together, is there a need for the verse above to teach that the divine presence comes to rest when three people sit and judge cases? So again, if you just tuned in, we're learning the Ein Yaakov, which is this book. It's the collection of stories of the Talmud by the 15th century scholar of Spain. He was banished from Spain in the Spanish Inquisition, Rabbi Yaakov ben Shlomo. The Alter Rebbe says studying this Ein Yaakov brings us fear of heaven and also assures us of a portion in the world to come. So the question was, if we know in the verse that God is with you when you study with two people together, then why do we need a verse to tell us that the divine presence comes to rest when three people sit and judge cases together? The Gemara answers, you might have said that judging a civil case is merely a matter of making peace and not a case of Torah study, and therefore the divine presence does not come to rest there. When you're just judging a case of law and not a Torah study, you'd think that God is not present. The verse therefore teaches us that judging a case too is considered to be Torah study, and the divine presence comes to rest there, which means that the divine presence is in a court of law. Wherever you have a court of law, which is judging a case, even if it's not Torah study, God dwells over there. If it's an honest, not if it's a kangaroo court, obviously, but if it's a real court. The Gemara asks further, and this is our last question, but since the divine presence comes to rest even when three people sit in judging a case, is there a need for a verse to teach that the divine presence comes to rest when 10 people are together? Why do I need to know that the divine presence is where 10 people are studying together? Why is it not enough that I know that just three people together are, even if there's only three people, I know that God is there if there's only three people together. Why do I need to know that a special verse to tell me? We learned this as we started our studies yesterday. We said God stands in the divine assembly. Assembly refers to 10. When there's 10 people together, that's when God is present. Why do I need the verse in Psalms 82, verse 1, to tell me that God is present in the divine assembly when there's 10, if I know that God is present if there's only 3? Obviously, God is there when there's 10. The Gemara answers, when 10 people gather, the divine comes even before all of them arrive. However, when 3 people judge a case together, the divine presence does not come until they actually come to sit and judge. What does that mean? When it says God stands in the divine assembly, it implies that God's presence is already there. God stands; He's already present in the divine assembly. The commentary explains that this is derived from the verse Nitzav, which is the tense of the verse. In readiness, implies standing in readiness. Okay, and I just want to conclude with the last closing thoughts here. Just want to take a look at the notes over here. Thank you, Warren Alec, who says that if you subscribe to chayina.org, you can actually access the daily Torah study online as well. There is even an app for that, the Chayino app you can get on your phone. Thank you, Dean, and bless you on your birthday. Happy birthday today, Dean. Mazel tov. May you have a year filled with health and happiness. Special welcome to Hope Lerman and Hani Levine. Great to have you guys with us. Mickey, is this electronic gathering deemed to be studying as a group together, or is it deemed as if we're studying alone? Fascinating question. And maybe the answer is Rob's answer. Regardless of the answer, I feel like I'm studying with you and the others here. So I think that, wow, such an interesting question, because I know that I can't do a minyan over virtual. But I wonder if this is considered as group Torah study, because the purpose of Torah study is to be connected in mind. And yes, I do think, I would argue that by us studying this way, God is present with us as a quorum. We're 17 live viewers right now. And I think that all the 17 of us certainly are drawing the divine presence upon us in the most meaningful way. When it comes to prayer, you need to be physically together. But when it comes to Torah study, I think it's the study, it's the conversation that's got to be together. And that's what's happening right here, especially when you comment, folks. So definitely, to your question, Mickey, I think this definitely counts as group Torah study. And I want to just conclude by saying the following, that when 10 men gather together in a minyan, for example, The presence of God is so intense over there that the angels, even the angels, aren't able to tolerate the intensity of the divine presence. So we who are spiritually blind, we don't see what's going on around us spiritually. We don't sense, we're oblivious to the divine presence that's around us. But let at least it be known, the extraordinary gift that we are able to literally invite the creator of the universe, the master of the world. We invite him to us when we gather together for a mitzvah and for Torah and for prayer. No other creation in this universe is able to do that. Think about that, folks, for a moment. You know, if a butterfly or a worm or a dinosaur or a lion wants to have a relationship with God, can't even talk to God. It's only us human beings. We're given the gift of communication, that we can talk to God whenever we want, and we can invite God to us whenever we want. Folks, we feel so lonely now. Yes, I agree with you, Shelly, you too, that we are learning together, but I kind of miss you all. You know, I miss everybody. And I want you to know that what we learned today is that we're never alone. God is present with you if you just invite him. It was the Kotzker Rebbe who was once asked, where is God? And his answer was so beautiful, the Rebbe of Kotzk. He said, God is wherever you let him in. God is waiting at your doorstep, and he wants you to invite him in. Is God comfortable in your home? Is God comfortable in your kitchen? Would he be comfortable in your bedroom? Would God be comfortable in your study or in your living room? It's up to you to make that call. Is there a mezuzah, a kosher mezuzah on your door? Is there kosher food in your kitchen? Are the laws of family purity observed in your bedroom? Do you study Torah in your study? Do you have Torah books in your house? If you take a moment to study Torah, then you're able to invite God to you. Folks, I'm going to call it a day. Thank you for joining me here this morning. There's a new comment coming in here. Yep, thank you all. It's really been a pleasure. We'll see you tomorrow morning at 8:30. I do hope to announce the details of my other class, which is the Introduction to Jewish Spirituality and Meditation through Prayer, very shortly. So stay tuned for breaking news about that. Thank you, folks. Keep in touch, and anything you need, please send me an email or call me, rabbi@jewishgardens.com. We are always here for you. Hannah and I are always here for you. You're not alone. Let's survive this together. God willing, it's going to be good. Shalom.